Hello and welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we'll hear a story about understanding and communication between managers and employees, as well as the impact of unfair treatment on employees' morale and engagement. This story will take you through an unexpected situation. The surprise lies in how the employee cleverly handled the issue, using the boss's own request to highlight its impracticality, all while adhering to the rules. If you find this story interesting and filled with meaningful lessons, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more valuable insights. The first job I ever had for several years was at a grocery retail store, which served customers in various distinct sections, ranging from the grocery aisles to the fruit and vegetable area to the bakery counter. Among these areas, I was assigned to the deli and cheese section, a special zone where we provided ready-to-eat products like sliced meats, cheeses, and some side dishes. This was not only where I began learning teamwork and customer service, but also the environment that first taught me the value of hard work, responsibility, and communication skills in retail. One evening, I worked the shift from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. According to store policy, 9 p.m. was when the deli and other special sections, like sliced meats, cheeses, and sandwiches, had to close. This meant that we had to finish cleaning, ensure all equipment was sanitized, and clock out on time, as the store was very strict about overtime. However, interestingly, the rest of the store, where they sold regular groceries, remained open 24/7. This created a unique atmosphere. On one side, we rushed to finish our tasks within the scheduled time, while on the other, the steady flow of customers kept the store lively. For me, adhering to the schedule wasn't just a requirement for management, but also a lesson in discipline and responsibility at work. That evening, I worked with a colleague during the final shift of the day. However, an unexpectedly large number of customers caused us to fall behind on our cleaning duties. It was a highly stressful evening, and we were trying to get everything done in a limited time. By that point, both of our meat slicers had been coated with a sanitizing solution, a crucial part of our food safety protocol. According to the guidelines, the solution needed at least 20 to 30 minutes to fully dry before the slicers could be used again. At 8:55 p.m., we were almost done with the cleaning and getting ready to finish our shift. I was feeling both exhausted but relieved as I looked forward to heading home after a long day of work. At that moment, a woman walked up to the counter, her eyes scanning the display case filled with deli meats. After a moment of selection, she pointed to the turkey and requested, "I want this turkey, but it must be freshly sliced." I glanced at my colleague, and both of us immediately realized the issue. The slicers couldn't be used at this moment because they were in the middle of a strict cleaning process. I calmly explained to her, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't slice the meat right now as our slicers are being cleaned and need time for the sanitizing solution to dry completely. However, I would be happy to get you some pre-sliced turkey from our stock." My response came from a place of professionalism and a desire to assist the customer to the best of my ability within the allowed guidelines. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but feel anxious about how she would react, especially since the stress of the day had already left my colleague and me feeling worn out. She looked at me with a scrutinizing gaze, almost as if she didn't believe my answer. She asked again, emphasizing each word, "So, you're not going to slice it fresh for me?" Even though I had anticipated this reaction, I still felt a bit flustered. In my mind, I quickly ran through the situation. The slicers were still being cleaned, there was limited time left, and food safety regulations didn't allow me to break the procedure. Maintaining a polite but firm tone, I responded, "Yes, ma'am, that's correct. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience." I tried to keep my gaze sincere, hoping that my honesty would help her understand the difficult position I was in. She didn't say another word. Her silence lingered for only a few seconds, but to me, it felt like an eternity. She turned and walked away, clearly frustrated. The sound of her footsteps echoed on the store floor, leaving a heavy feeling in the air. I watched her leave, feeling both relieved that the situation didn't escalate and a bit disheartened because I couldn't fulfill her request, even though I knew I had followed the rules and done everything within my power. That moment reminded me that in the service industry, it's impossible to please everyone, no matter how much effort you put in. Sometimes, sticking to the principles and ensuring food safety means accepting customer dissatisfaction. 2 days later, as I started my usual afternoon shift, I was unexpectedly called to the manager's office. I had no idea what the reason was, but I had a gut feeling that it wasn't good news. Walking into the office, I saw the director, who looked quite displeased, sitting behind her desk with a stern expression. Before I could even sit down or greet her, She pushed a piece of paper toward me and coldly said, "Explain this." I took the paper and read it. It was a 1-star Google review for the store, accompanied by a lengthy comment from the woman who had visited a few nights earlier. In her review, she not only complained about me not slicing the meat fresh but also called me a rude and unprofessional employee. I felt uncomfortable but tried to remain calm. I explained the entire situation in detail, from the slicers being in the process of cleaning, following food safety regulations, to the limited time we had before we needed to close the store. However, as soon as I got halfway through, the director interrupted me, her voice sharper than usual. "Why are the slicers being cleaned at 8:55? You work until 9 o'clock, not 8:55. I tried to explain further, mentioning that we were always required to avoid overtime, so I usually started cleaning around 8:30 to ensure I could clock out on time at 9 o'clock. But the director wasn't interested in hearing it. Her tone became more irritable. "I don't care about the reasons. If a customer comes, you serve them. That's your job. And don't forget to ensure the shelves are fully stocked before you leave. If you can't do that, you don't need to work here anymore." Her harsh words made me feel both frustrated and unfairly treated. Despite following the rules and trying my best, I was scolded unfairly. Her words echoed in my mind like an unreasonable order, but I just nodded and left the office without saying another word. In my head, I started thinking about how to respond to this situation, not just for my self-respect, but also to defend my efforts and work principles. When I returned to the work area, my mood was heavy and anxious. I told my colleague about the tense conversation with the director. Both of us felt that, although we had valid reasons and followed the procedures, the director had set an unrealistic and unfair standard. However, we understood that if we wanted to keep our jobs and avoid unwanted consequences, we had to do as the director requested, even if it didn't seem reasonable. So, we decided to follow the director's instructions exactly. We stayed at the store after hours and continued the tasks we should have finished earlier. That night, not only did we thoroughly clean the work area, but we also worked hard to slice trays of meat and cheese, making sure not to miss any detail. Even though we knew this wasn't our normal task, under the director's guidance, we decided to complete everything, even slicing an additional 70 pounds of cheese to fill the fridge. This was beyond anything we thought we would have to do during a regular shift. We also prepared twice the usual amount of sandwiches for display, ensuring that no shelf was left empty. With each passing second and minute, I could feel exhaustion creeping through my body. My eyes grew heavy from lack of sleep, and my body ached, but we remained determined to finish everything. By the time everything was finally done, the clock showed 3 a.m. Though we had fulfilled all the director's requirements, we couldn't help but feel a little disappointed and frustrated. Were all our efforts and unnecessary overtime truly worth it when we had received no acknowledgement earlier? The next day, when my colleague and I returned to work, the area manager unexpectedly came to see us and announced, "Start cleaning at 8:30 as usual." "I think the boss has understood your message." My colleague and I exchanged glances, a hint of irony in our eyes, because we knew it was the grueling overtime hours from the night before that made the director change her attitude. It turned out that our efforts had made her realize something clear. If we could do all of that after hours and still meet all the requirements, why should we be pressured by unnecessary time constraints during normal shifts? What surprised us even more was that the director didn't ask us to make up for the overtime hours. We were allowed to keep the 6 hours of overtime without any penalty or adjustment to our working hours. Still, the feeling of satisfaction didn't last long. Although we had proven that we could do everything without being excessively pressured, the work environment still didn't provide us with the true respect we deserved. After reflecting for some time, I decided to look for a new job. 6 months later, I received a job offer with a salary nearly twice as much as before. I felt satisfied leaving the retail environment, where the work pressure was too high and the recognition too low. It was the right decision, not just financially but also mentally. I understood that sometimes, in order to escape unfair environments, we have to embrace change and step outside of our comfort zones. After all the difficulties and challenges in an unfair work environment, I realized that my patience and efforts weren't always recognized as they should be. However, I also learned an important lesson. Sometimes, following unreasonable requests can help us demonstrate our abilities and strength, but if there is no respect or acknowledgement from others, it's not a place to stay long-term. It was through determination and relentless effort that I found a new, more deserving job with a salary and work environment that fostered respect and long-term development. The lesson I learned is this: never accept unfairness or poor working conditions, no matter how small. Sometimes, change is necessary to protect yourself and grow in your career. Always remember that you deserve a job where you're not only expected to work hard, but also treated fairly and with respect. Your self-respect and efforts should be properly acknowledged, and if not, don't hesitate to seek new opportunities. Don't let unfair situations or others' disrespectful attitudes cause you to lose faith in yourself. In your work, even when faced with pressure or injustice, always maintain your self-respect and stay true to your principles. But also, never forget that you deserve to work in a fair environment, where your efforts are recognized and valued properly. If not, be bold enough to look for new opportunities where you can grow and advance. Don't be afraid to change, because only by proactively seeking better opportunities can you achieve true success and happiness in your career.